one person who's running the AI that was doing the job of 10 people, let's just say. So you're going to have consolidation. There's going to be a reshuffling of what the sophisticated workforce does. I don't know where it ends up, but we're definitely in the midst of it.
You're listening to Alternative Investor Mastermind, where we do a deep dive on alternative investment opportunities and the lifestyle it can create. Join Jack Krupe as he presents actionable tips and tricks in doing passive real estate away from mainstream strategies. Go beyond the usual fix and flips and try less explored yet rewarding investing ventures. From multifamily properties, mobile homes to cryptocurrencies. Do not miss this opportunity to escape traditional assets and finally create wealth without Wall Street. Now your host, Jack.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Alternative Investor Mastermind. I have a friend and guest, Bill Halick, here with me today.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah, this is our brand new studio that we're sharing,
Yes,
so
yes.
Thank you for sharing a piece of your office to build this.
It came out really nice. So thanks for being part of it, and we have a good crew of folks that are engaged in it, and we're looking forward to being able to put on more shows like this. So
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. We're gonna continue to shoot our show, and then we're gonna do some content for you, and we may just have some hangs where we just get together and make it just kind of a talk real estate, talk life, talk business, and
hopefully we can catch all that and see, keep the good clips, let's call it.
Exactly. So, why don't you just tell us your story? Just how did you get into real estate and mortgages?
Real estate and mortgages. It's literally, pretty much the career I've done since college. So I was undergrad in Montclair, and wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and was trying to figure out a direction. I had studied history and pre-law as a minor, so I thought I was possibly going to be an attorney. And I had sat down with a couple of attorneys, and a couple of them were like, if you don't love the law, you shouldn't do this. And I'm like, is this guy giving me the hint to run from this career? And I was like, I'm 20, man. I don't know anything what I love at this point. I was still trying to figure it out. So because of that, I didn't go to law school. I got bit by the travel bug and the real estate bug. And those two things sort of directed my life. I always thought I'd finish college, go live in New York City, or Jersey City or something, get a job at a big company. It was the biggest company I was going to find. Work in New York, live in New Jersey, blah, 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 which is fine. And I thought that was going to be my trajectory. But then I went and I lived in Spain during my junior or senior year of college. And that kind of changed everything. I had studied Spanish as a language since 8th grade, so I was pretty decently grounded in it. But it really wasn't until I was immersed in it that it really clicked for me. And I'll never forget waking up in Spain, dreaming in Spanish. And I was like, whoa, that was awesome. Because now I'm like, now I get it,
That's great. Yeah, I've heard the best way to learn Spanish is to get a Spanish girlfriend. Unfortunately, my wife won't let me, so Spanish is still terrible.
Well, that is a great way to do it, but you definitely need to get the okay from the wife first. But yeah, so Spain was a great place to and then that's when the travel bug kind of exploded, right? So I was all over Spain, and then I went up in France with a friend, and then we went to Scotland, and started to really explore. And when I came back from that, I really wanted to travel. I really wanted to see South America. So I had gone down. One of my college buddies was from Argentina. He had moved back to Buenos Aires after college to run his father's leather stores, let's call it, in the capital there. So I went down to visit him, had a great trip. Then we went to Brazil a couple of times, then went back to Argentina for his wedding. And meanwhile, I had gotten into real estate and mortgages. I had said in a different video, I'm one of the only guys that actually went into mortgage on purpose. A lot of people are like, I just fell into this. I chose to go into the mortgage business because I wanted to learn how to buy real estate, and I knew that if I could understand how the financing worked, it would make purchasing real estate a lot easier. So that's what I did, and specifically job-wise, I worked at a company. We could do a whole nother podcast on it if you want. Now, you're from New Jersey, so you might remember, but you're a bit younger than me. Do you remember a company called Foxtons?
Yeah, it was YHD Foxtons or something like that. YHD.
So the story of Foxtons is, the guy's name is Glenn Cohen. He recently passed. He was a really visionary in real estate. I mean, we talk about online real estate and stuff now in 2024. I mean, this is 2001, light years ahead of the competition. We could discuss what they did right and what they did wrong. I think it would be a great Harvard Business Review. But just the quick story on it is they came out gangbusters, offering a 2% all-in commission. Now, 2%, if you're the public, you're used to paying 6% at that point in time, right? It's come down a little bit, but it's still, back then it was definitely 6%. So, and they did a marketing blitz. They were marketing masters, right? So they're marketing like crazy. At that point, they were called Your Home Direct. This is the first wave of the internet bubble, when the internet bubble had just come out. And everybody, like the phones were lit up. Marketing is killing it. The phones are lit up. They were tri-state, so Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey. Phones are lit up. It was down in West Long Branch. That's where the office was, right off of 36, across from the Aldi, which is still there. I can't think of the name of the complex, the business complex. But so they're killing it because the phones are lit up. Then they wanted to compete with like the bigger names in New York, like Brown Harris, whatever they call it, Douglas Elliman, those guys, etc. So then they went to London, where Foxtons was a real estate company for many years. They partnered with Foxtons of London to get a more prestige in the name. That's when they rebranded. I think they were purple and yellow at that point. They went with the Mini Coopers, which was the British car, and that, the Mini Cooper had just been redesigned at that point. So again, they were really ahead of their time. They did some things wrong, but it was a great place to learn. I mean, because it was accelerated, right? The phones were ringing nonstop. They had mortgage, they had real estate, they had title, they had it all under one roof. I mean, light years ahead. It really was a great place to learn. I'm actually, I wrote a chapter in a book that's coming out in the next, I think it's this year it's going to come out. And it actually talks about another story from that period of my life, which, again, we can talk about later. But it was very interesting. So I'm there for a while, I'm learning, and I felt like I had learned as much as I could learn there. I understood how all the pieces of the puzzle worked there and what my role was there. And I also saw that there was a cap to how much I was really going to earn there, and it wasn't. I could see the trajectory was going to stop. And I was a very ambitious guy at that point in my life. As a young guy, I wanted to keep growing. So I had applied for a job at JP Chase. It's a long story, but I got hired there as an account executive. So now I switched from what you would consider the retail division, let's say, to the wholesale division. So I was representing JP Chase to mortgage brokers and bankers from, my territory was Maine down to Delaware. So I had a good territory, and I was an inside sales guy, which at that time was a bit like we're used to now, living in a world of everything's remote. But back then, account executives were on the road in a suit, showing up at your office. I was going to be on the phone. So it was a little bit of a different thing. I did pretty well there. It was also, the winds of the time. I had tailwinds pushing me, 04, 05, before, 06, before it really fell off a cliff. So I was working there, and then I had set up, I decided I always wanted to run my own thing, so I put together the mortgage company that I still have today. We're pushing over 20 years that we've had the company. So we did that before the crash. So we had the company up and running before the crash. I had left Chase at that point. So before the crash, through the crash of 08, post all of that, now in this muck that we're in. So we had the little mini bubble, boom, whatever you want to call it, from COVID. And now we're in, a slog. What's the bank? There's a bank in New York that failed. Signature just failed. The other bank in California failed.
Silicon Valley Bank.
SVB failed. First Republic, that was a shock. I never thought they were going to let that one fail. I was very surprised that one failed. And actually another bank, a mortgage bank called Civic, went out. So we've watched a bunch of banks pop in the last year, and it's been a slog. But I do think 2024 is poised to be a little bit better. I mean, it was the doldrums last year. I think with the Fed cuts that are likely to come this year, we should see a little bit better. So fast forward, through that, a lot of other stuff happened. Got a real estate, license. We did real estate. We have a real estate company now. Moved to Puerto Rico back in 2001. Set the company up, moved the company in 2019. Was planning to be here in 2020. COVID hits. Who saw that coming? And so 2020 was kind of just another whacked year. And then 2021 was here, and we've been here and met you guys, met a bunch of people down here. It's been a great. I could say that has been a real highlight. There's been so many good people in the last couple of years. So that's been exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I came down, obviously there were some tax incentives which got my initial attention. Mm-hmm. I knew someone who moved down here in 2014, And ultimately, though, what's keeping me here is the network, the community, just the quality of people, both local and the other entrepreneurs who've made the decision to come down here. It's second to none.
Now I always say this to people. I'm like, if there was incentives in Alaska, like who's going? Like nobody's going, right? Like I think it's a combination of things that brings people together. To your point, they help get folks here, but I think it's much deeper than that. The island itself, the people, the food, all that stuff, the weather, all these factors combine to really make it a great experience. And then the people who you meet who did come or are coming, everybody I've met's been pretty cool, so it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. What originally got your attention? How did you even find out about Puerto Rico?
So it's a long story. Well, that's what these podcasts are for, right? Telling stories. So back in the day, in 05, 06, I had wanted to get my parents a house at the Jersey Shore, and that's when the bubble of housing prices. That was the last monster peak, right? We've since surpassed that, but now most things have caught up in price. At that time, housing was totally out of line, and then it collapsed, right? So, but pre-collapse, we're out looking for properties. I wanted to help my parents get some modest house at the beach just to have something to go. My grandfather always used to take us down to the beach, so I wanted to find a place. And we're looking around, and everything's super overpriced. I'm looking at this going, I got horse flies, and I got 3 months to use this. I'm like, now I'm starting to really weigh it, and I having traveled, I'm like, we could find a way cooler place. Now, sometimes I wish I had, I don't know how or why we ended up in Dominican Republic. Sometimes I wish I had come to Puerto Rico because it would have made a lot more sense if you fast forward my life, but, things happen. You don't know what's going to happen, who knows. But somehow we found the north coast in Dominican Republic, and there's a couple of great towns up there. This one was called Cabarete. It was a lot of surfers. It was kind of a wind surfing, kite surfing kind of a mecca, let's call it. And we went down there and we found a place, brand new at the time, close to brand new, 3-bedroom, 3-bath, almost on the ocean, and you could buy. I think we paid $190,000 for it. So I'm looking at that versus, a shit box on the beach for $700,000 or $500,000, monster taxes, and I can only use it 2 or 3 months out of the year. So we start looking at this and we go, oh, this is kind of a no-brainer. So we went down there. And, I was going there for years in the winters. So, I'm reading, what's his name? Tim Ferriss, The 4-Hour Work Week.
4-Hour Work Week, that book changed my life.
Yeah, so I'm reading the book going, this guy stole my book. Like, I'm down in Dominican in the winter, not telling anybody I'm down there. So, because remember, remote work was not a thing really. Everybody's like, if I would tell people back then where I am, they'd lose their mind. Like, how can you do that? That doesn't even make sense. Meanwhile, I used to forward my cell phone to my Skype number to my Dominican cell phone. So if you called my number in Jersey, I'm still getting the cell phone call, and the connection was a little spotty, but it worked, So, and this is before Zoom. That could be another business review. How did Skype fail? They were so far ahead.
Yeah, I used it. Yeah, I was in Korea in 2008. And
right.
Same thing. I'd forwarded my number and.
Right.
Yeah,
so
the only issue is the voicemail. Sometimes it wouldn't.
Didn't pick up right. Yeah. So I'm reading that book with the Tim Ferriss book, and I'm like, dude, I'm kind of doing this. I'm like, I should have wrote the book, whatever. And it was cool. It was the very beginning of all this. So I figured out the first time I went down, I stayed like a week or two. Then I stayed like 2-3 weeks. Then I stayed like a month. I'm like, dude, I can do this. So then I stayed like close to the whole winter, and I was like, this works. And I had a partner in the mortgage business, and we were kind of going in different directions. And I was like, if I have to redo the whole company, I'm going to do it over again in Puerto Rico. I was aware of the whole tax business. So I'm like, if I could do this in Dominican, surely we could do it in Puerto Rico. And I said, let's do it, I didn't really have big contacts here or anything. I just figured, set up shop, and I've met a ton of people along the way, and it's been great. Listen, everything has its trials and tribulations, but overall I've had a good experience, so.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I know I was aware of this in 2014, but it really didn't seem real and frankly, I was just kind of, building a new business at this point. We'd started buying non-performing loans in really 2000, 2008, I started working for a firm, and by 2010, I was on my own. But in 2014, we had just started a partnership with a private equity fund, so that was not the time to be turning into a digital nomad. Although that's really what I wanted. Having been an entrepreneur first and working with a bunch of like Wall Street private equity people, I was really just a fish out of water. But I was also the only one who had been an entrepreneur who had worked for themselves. Everybody else was just in that Wall Street mentality. So it was one of the, it was amazing, but at the same time, probably some of the most stressed and unhappy I was just because I was trapped. I was talking to my best friend who still works for the company, and he worked from home. But there was a day he was in the city, and like 3 o'clock, we're kind of, everything that needed to be done was done for the day. But we had to stay there till like 6 or 7 because it looked bad to leave early. And like that, I think, not having that control, not having that freedom.
Listen, the hierarchy of the old days of corporate America before digital nomads, before what is much more common today. I mean, that was the world that I was coming up in, so I always knew or thought that that's how it was going to be, the 9 to 5, like the whole concept that you just throw that in the trash, and people could just be on their own, creating their own times, their own work times. That was just not really how it was, and I think we're in that transition of those days passing, and then the new way of working. As much as WeWork failed miserably, and that's a whole wild story, conceptually the idea of setting up these small spaces for entrepreneurs to work, the whole gig economy, and the rise of digital, meaning, like think about it, filing cabinets. I mean, the dumbest idea. How much room did you need in an office just to have giant paper filing cabinets that you'd have to hold on records for years? Now fits on a thumb drive, literally the size of your thumb. You could have 200 terabytes or whatever it is. It's unbelievable. These things changed the way everybody works today, and now with AI, which is only like in its infancy now, you're going to see, I think this is even changing more, and there's still a huge battle between the old way and the new way, because I just heard literally today on Bloomberg or something, IBM is saying no more work from home, you have to be in the office 3 days a week. Yet there's studies that are out saying that people are just as productive at home as they are in the office. So I don't know. Is it just the old ways won't die? Is it corporations or businesses want control over their people? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I mean, there's certainly some benefits of being in the office for some of the time, especially for the younger, the younger employees getting started to really build that.
They learn.
Coworkers. And just team building. But yeah, the whole 5 days a week, 70, 80 hours a week with no flexibility. I think that ship has sailed, especially in these high cost of living cities where people got used to, commuting, you'd lose 2 hours a day commuting, or you'd actually get a more expensive apartment so you didn't have to commute as much. I think with COVID, a lot of people moved further away.
Because they could work remote, save money by living further. But now if you tell them they got to come in, it's like, well, wait a minute. I bought a house in the boonies on purpose because I was working remote and I was saving money. Now you're telling me I got to double my commute time?
And it's factoring into salary too. If they want someone to come into a San Francisco or a New York, I mean, you have to pay maybe $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 more to make it feasible for them. So it really depends on the profession. I know people who are doing coding, most of the time you're more productive at home with no distractions. Just put your headphones on and just grind away, and not have somebody stopping by your cubicle to bother you.
That kind of talking actually is counterproductive, because those guys or girls, they just need focus, right? They don't really need interaction, really. They're just doing what they know they're supposed to do. But to your point before, the younger folks, I definitely agree with that there's a, I don't know if the right word is not osmosis, but there's like the learning that takes place simply by being around veterans of the industry that have been doing it for years. Maybe the technology's changed, but each individual business, a lot of the core things you learn, if you're not around some of those people, and these are things I think about in my own business, because we're very remote, we're very laissez-faire in the, I'm very much a guy like, look, you know what you need to do, go get it done. Like, I don't want to babysit you. Like, I respect your time. I respect that you're a capable individual. Go get it done. Like, I don't want to be bot. I don't want to be a micromanager, but sometimes I wonder if there are benefits to having, people in the pods and being around each other. And so these are things I go back and forth with trying to figure out.
There's definitely some benefits, but at the same time, it's just not as feasible. I mean, we're a very remote company. We have, one person in the Philippines that does a lot of the back end, helps with accounting. My sales guy, investor relations, he's American, but he lives in Colombia.
Nice.
And then one of our marketing guys is in Colombia as well. And then actually two of our other sort of marketing and tech guys live here part of the year now. So, but they were in Portland, Oregon when I first connected with them. So
okay.
we were fully remote from day one.
So let me ask you, this is interesting. So with your company, how do you organize those folks together? Do you guys have a Zoom meeting, a Slack meeting, or whatever technology meeting once a week, once a month? Like, how do you structure it?
Yeah, so when we started, I actually, through one of the masterminds I was in, met one of the business coaching programs. So when we started right from the beginning, we established a version of EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System.
Traction.
They had their own, their own slant on it, but it was largely built on EOS.
Right.
And we built out Asana, we built out a level 10 meeting, a weekly meeting. So from day one, because otherwise I'm a bit dysfunctional. I'm all over the place.
You need some structure, absolutely.
It's like, I'm definitely 100% visionary as opposed to implementer for those who follow EOS. So I knew right from day one we needed to have something, because I just knew from past experience, I'm not that operational taskmaster myself. I don't like to micromanage.
I'm the visionary style too.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, here's step 1, 3, 7, go get it done, and then I don't want to follow up, which is not good for those that
you're
don't
absolutely
have the same
right.
mentality I do. So that helps. So we have that weekly meeting.
Okay. What day of the week do you do it?
It's on Wednesdays.
Okay.
Then,
in the mornings or afternoons?
It's like I think 1 o'clock. Well, it moves because of Puerto Rico. It's either 12 or 1.
Right.
The Puerto Rico time zone.
Right.
And then separately, we have a content meeting that we launch that's more brainstorming and more project managing, things like this podcast, figuring out what episode's next.
Okay.
Brainstorming new ideas.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, because I love interviews. They're easy. We don't need much prep. We could just kind of sit down, turn the cameras on and
get into
talk.
it. Yep.
But we try to also, have me do some solo episodes from time to time where I just pick a topic. Those are a little bit more challenging.
Okay.
And try to just bullet point out just something that I think would be helpful to the audience and talk about it for 10, 15, 20 minutes. Whether it's something on interest rates, something on a lesson I learned.
With Asana, when you built out the level 10, did you guys rip a template, or did you guys just have somebody put it together?
Yeah, we actually hired that coaching program to kind of go through and try to figure out what our quarterly and annual goals would be, and then kind of work backwards. You figure out your annual goal, you figure out your quarterly goals.
Yes, it's a great system.
Tasks.
It is a great system.
And it's not easy with a small company because a lot of us sit in many different seats. Once you have 20 employees or so, the level 10 is really department heads running it, but it's still somewhat of an all hands on deck, and it just brings me into still, a majority of the meetings. I am trying to get it so that I'm less of a bottleneck, because there's certain things I'm just not good at, especially, process building and that type of stuff. I try to leave that to the team and those that are more detail oriented. Exactly.
Yeah.
I have the vision. At the same time, it's still my business. I have the vision.
I'm the same way. I'm not a very detailed person. If I slow everything down and you give me the time to go look through the details, of course I can do it. But because you're running and gunning, it's like, just get this done. Like, I don't really need to know everything about that as long as it's working correctly. I don't like when people cut corners. That drives me crazy. Figure out the right way to do it and do it the right way. If you need help, I can slow down and help. But I'm much more trying to sail the ship and be looking out ahead of what's coming, so that we don't run into rocks. You know what I mean? If I'm down over here, focused on some super detail-oriented thing, the boat, no one's holding the steering wheel, and the boat's kind of going off course.
Oh, absolutely. And I get personally frustrated. I feel like I'm failing as a business owner if I get pulled into too much minutia.
Yes.
So it drives some people crazy. But there's times that I'll step out and let something break. Not if it's going to cost the business significant money. But
then you'll learn something about where the weak piece was and how to fix that. Right?
Exactly. It's very important to do. I know another book. I don't know if you've read The E-Myth.
Yes, Michael Gerber.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it talks about running the business, not working the business.
That was a huge. I've been running this company on my own now for literally over 20 years, and reading that book is a great book. So I definitely recommend it, especially for people who are working a corporate job and thinking of leaving. And I think it's huge because they give that little story about Susie who bakes pies or something, and like she really likes to bake pies, so she thinks, oh well, I'll just make a job where I bake pies, and then she doesn't realize like baking pies is like a teeny piece of running the business, right? Like, and she has this joyous thing of like, I like to bake the pie, but like, there's so much other stuff you have to do when you turn that into a business, right? Who's doing the marketing? Who's doing the accounting? Who's doing the fulfillment? It's like, I just want to bake pies. And that's the myth, right? You think it's going to be this easy thing being an entrepreneur. And then you jump into the pit of doing it and you're like, wow, I have to do a lot. I didn't realize how much there is to do. So sometimes it can be very overwhelming. And
yeah. They say most entrepreneurs will work 80 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours a week for somebody else.
Yeah. It's sometimes I wonder, like, could I even... I do believe that if I had to, I could work in a corporate environment again. But I do think there'd be an adjustment because I'm so used to just doing it this way for so long.
I think I'm borderline unemployable. There's certain, I guess a certain type of sales biz dev role, which kind of, you're kind of on your own anyway, because, my years in private equity, I was there and I lasted, but there was a fair amount of friction and it was, by the time I was ready to go, it was
time to go.
Yeah, it was affecting my health. I became an official New Yorker and saw a therapist. And
listen, there's nothing wrong with that. It's very helpful.
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
Helpful.
And now, I don't see anybody now specifically, but when I listen to podcasts, it actually becomes my therapy. We were talking earlier about morning routines, and I like to throw on a podcast and take an hour walk in the morning.
That's great.
I'm not actually meditating, but it's kind of meditative, I think. And,
absolutely.
And hearing other people talk about life and their challenges, I can identify with that. It lets me kind of compartmentalize some of the things happening in my life. But one of the most telling things I was told when I went to therapy is I don't like rules. And being in a more corporate
being in someone else's company,
yeah,
it's very much all these rules you got to follow, right?
Yeah, exactly, and fitting into that culture, and where I was, and it was more of a secretive culture too. Mm-hmm. Sort of worried about giving away ideas or this and that. I've always had that abundance mentality myself, so that was really tough for me to.
Right. So people in the I'm interjecting, but people in the office wouldn't really collaborate. You're saying because everybody was like fearful of if I got your knowledge or you got my knowledge, then I could excel over you. Is that kind of what you're saying?
And also externally too, just like being afraid what you said if you're at a conference or talking to others in the industry.
Okay.
We're just being careful. Like what's something? Do we have this secret sauce that just sharing something, some fact or some data point is gonna help
trigger off the other competitor, and all of a sudden, right. Yeah, I think that's definitely that's out there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's healthy or not. If you're Coca-Cola, do you give away your secret recipe? Probably not. But I think there is a lot of stuff that can be shared, and
especially in real estate investing now too. And we were in a niche. It was a more specific niche of buying non-performing mortgages. It was at a larger scale. Mm-hmm. But the way I try to lead my life now is more of an abundance mentality. And there's very I don't know that there's one secret sauce now. I'm investing in various projects. The intellectual property I've built is really just my network. Mm-hmm. And I'm not afraid to have even a pseudo competitor come on the pod and talk. Maybe somebody listens and invests with them instead of me, but I don't worry about that. Like one person here or there.
Right.
I think a rising tide will raise all ships. And I just try to just be as generous with knowledge. It's what's rewarding for me is to help people get into the business. I've helped so many people get into real estate, into the mortgage business, into buying non-performing loans, and now we're getting to an age where retirement's maybe not too in the distant future, and I want to be able to help our cohort and our friends, family, business associates, plan better for their life, save on their taxes, and really build some passive income. Yeah,
it's weird, right? As you go through stages of life, perspectives change, and the things change, and goals change, and it's weird to think that it's not as far off as it used to be. When you're in your early 20s, it feels like the runway is so long, right? Of how much time you have to do things and continue, and you can make more mistakes at that point earlier in your life. As I've gotten older, you start to feel the runway compress, and I think that bigger mistakes can hinder you more the further along you are. I don't want to get into too many of the details. I just had, let's call it a loss in real estate. And I've knock on wood, up to this point, I've done pretty well. Haven't had too many blunders, let's call it. And this one killed me. And I mean, I'm alive. I have my health. It's not like, we'll be okay. I already went through the 5 stages of grief on this one. Like, I don't know what they are, but it's like regret, anger. Like, I went through all of it.
Bargaining.
Yeah, like now I'm in the point of like acceptance. Like, I have to accept that we failed at this on this project. Now, the truth of the matter is what really happened is the partner that I hired, I set up the financing and put it all together. This person's role was to run the job, the construction of it's a renovation of a 2-family house. This was not like we're building the Taj Mahal. I really didn't think it was that big of a deal. Not that I didn't treat it serious, but I genuinely believe this person could handle, I mean, the way they presented themselves. They've done this hundreds of times before, so I had no reason, and I trusted them. I knew them for years. I had no reason not to believe that they couldn't handle the job. And they did not do what they were supposed to. So it's easy for me to sit here and tell you it's their fault, which it is, but I don't like that out because it gets me off the hook, and I don't want myself off the hook because I'm financially feeling the loss, so I can't allow myself off the hook because what did I learn if I feel like I'm off the hook? So I look at it like this. I hired her, right? I hired this person. So at the end of the day, nobody put a gun to my head. Nobody made me do this deal. I did the diligence I did, right? So maybe I should have did more diligence. What did I learn from this? I learned I should have done more diligence. I should have went deeper on my analysis of what she showed me, right? She showed me some Facebook pictures of projects she did. I should have went deeper with her. And I can't get back the money I lost. And I'm also don't have as much road anymore. So I'm also learning how destructive a loss can be at this point that I can never have that happen again. It just cannot happen again.
No, it's tough. And then there's the hindsight being 2020. I mean, more diligence up front, maybe step in a little earlier to take some control.
Step in earlier, better contracts. The contracts I had between us were not as strong or as thoroughly written out as they should have been, the operating agreement, etc. Why? I genuinely believe this person was a professional. I had no doubts that they wouldn't be able to do what they, you come to me and ask for a mortgage, you're getting a mortgage, right? Like, I do what I say I'm going to do. And one of my faults is I assume people are going to do what they say they're going to do. I always take people at their word, and I should be more, what's the word? It'll come to me. But the point is, I should have stepped in sooner, right? There's a bunch of things I should have done that now going back, and I might even put together a little booklet about this story and put it out there as like a warning guide or something, because, man, you can't have this happen. I would not want this to happen to anybody else. It was, you see how white this is? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
It was already white.
Yeah. Now, did it end up almost a total loss, or you just took as a percentage of dollars invested?
A total loss.
Total loss.
I'll lose. I mean, I'll tell you the numbers. I'm going to lose close to $170,000. And for me, I'm a little small-time investor. That's a lot of money.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's
but
brutal.
you did sell the house, and there's not an issue with the mortgage, nothing on the credit.
It's under contract. It has not closed, so this story we don't know what's going to happen. I have to pray and hope that everything works okay. In fact, today I'll be checking on their mortgage. I'm not doing their mortgage. I was praying that I got their mortgage, but I'm the seller, so that's a little weird. So they're using a company. I know that company. I know some people at that company. So I'm going to give them a call and just say, hey, how's it coming? Is it going along? If that guy closes, which I hope and think he will, then I'll be done. The bleeding will have stopped. The property's now finally off my back. But when I tally up those numbers, I mean, it might be more than that. I haven't really done the full accounting yet.
It's tough. I mean, I went through a couple in 2007, 2008 for sure, and it took me a year or two to kind of get my confidence back, and then caught a really good run in the mortgage business. And we had some losses in the mortgage business, but we're buying hundreds of loans where
Right.
it's kind of built in.
Right.
But I'd never taken a total loss on an individual deal, and then after I left, this one random loan actually in New Jersey, and I think we were defrauded. It was a non-performing loan during COVID. Seemed almost too good to be true. Did a ton of diligence, had my attorney look at it.
So you bought the non-performing note, just so I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it turned out...
What kind of LTV was it?
It was like 25, 30 LTV, which...
Super low.
Yeah, seemed too good to be true, but it was middle of COVID, and, the sellers were not... it was a law firm. It seemed like they weren't professional mortgage lenders.
They just somehow obtained this, and they were in the mix, and they were trying to get rid of it.
They lent to another doctor.
Okay.
I know on residential, you don't really need to worry about environmental. I know if you do a big commercial deal, you do a phase one.
Yes.
But to buy a loan, it was less than $100,000. Didn't really think to do a phase one. There was no liens, judgments. We did everything but a phase one.
Was it residential real estate?
It was like a small. It was like a row house of offices, a row of offices.
I got you.
And it was built in 2000.
So relatively new.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it turned out there was a laundromat there like 20 years before on the prior building.
And there was something in the
there was
soil?
nothing on record that we could have seen other than doing a phase one. So. It turns out it's probably worthless. Now, we are trying to go after potentially personal guarantees, but I think the mortgage company knew, and I think that was
their plan to get rid of it.
The way to get rid of it. So we'll see what happens, but that shook my confidence as well.
Yep.
Yeah,
I was rattled. Like I said, I went through those stages of grief, and at the end of it, I definitely learned a bunch of what I did wrong and what I won't do again. And now I'm a little gun shy. I'm a little once bitten, twice shy. But I do have a huge piece of me that's like, I can't go out like that. Like I need to get back on the horse and let's go find the next deal. And obviously, if and when I do the next deal, I'm going to be much more cautious, let's call it, and do more of the diligence up front that I didn't do. I don't think I would do that deal because I'm in Puerto Rico. That deal was in New Jersey. I think I may have to be geographically where I'm doing a deal. I don't know if I'll do that again, unless I really have a partner that I can trust, and maybe we've done a couple of deals and it's past this was our first deal with this person in my story here. I had known this person for a long time, and genuinely, I was trying to help them become an owner of real estate because they don't own anything right now, and I was like, well, look, we'll partner on this. I'll put everything up. You run the job, and at the end, we'll just do a 30-year fixed takeout loan, put renters in it. We'll own an LLC, you're 50, I'm 50, and we'll collect the rental, and now you'll have passive income for your future. I literally thought I was like super helping this person. And, at the end of the day, I think the accounting is, I definitely think that some of the funds were misappropriated where they were supposed to go. And, if you look at that, one of the big things that drove me nuts with this, no permits were obtained. What are you doing? This is like the first thing. And then there was arguments between us that we don't need them. Like literally after the town put a stop work order, still yelling at me, like verbally screaming. We're screaming like, and we're oil and water. We were not good at in the beginning everything was fine, but as it got worse, like both of our personalities, it was just a bad mix of everything. But so now we're like arguing on the phone, and this person's still telling me we don't need permits. Yet the town's put a stop work order for no permits, and we're going to court with the town for this. Like
that's delusional.
Delusional. What are you talking about? Another thing that happened during it was just so much. It's good for the podcast because it was just so much drama. It was just nothing but drama, dude. It was like it really could have been an episode of like This House Gone Bad or something. I don't know what show it would be on, but accusing me of hacking their bank account. First of all, I'm busy running my life. I'm over here. I don't. What? How could you even accuse me of that? Number one. Number two. No, I'm sorry. Meanwhile, this person on the accounts that for the two companies that we did for these projects, I put them on so they can log in. I'm like, you can log in. I don't understand how to log in. I had to make a video, like a screen recording video. Here's how you log into the bank account. Click login. Here's your username. Here's your password. I'm like, if it doesn't work for you, I don't know what's wrong with you, but I just showed you the video. You can get it.
If only you set that up before you closed at the house, maybe that would have been the sign to kill the deal. It's just like
yes, it was crazy. It was just a crazy experience, and this is good. This is like good therapy for me because it was tough. It's still live. It's still going on. It's been going for. Oh, so here's more fun facts. I used borrowed money to do this, right? So first of the month with this particular investor, this particular lender, there's a payment due. So first of the month, you got to pay principal and interest. No, it's not even principal; it's just interest only. But it's a huge loan; it's like $600,000. So the payment's like almost 6,000, 580, whatever the number is. So February 1st is in 2 days. That payment's about to be due. Now it's also the 12-month anniversary, which means I have to make a decision: do I go into default interest, or do I pay a one-time fee of another 1% to get a 3-month extension, even though we're about to close? We're scheduled to close February 20th. So actually, let's discuss. I'm not going to hold you to it, but what would you do? Like, I'm going to pay once and then pay another point, so you're talking $12,000, and I'm going to close a week later? Like,
yeah, it depends on what the default interest is. I mean, if it goes to 18%, I'd probably just pay the default interest. If it's 24 or something, then maybe.
And how many days?
Yeah, you just got to, how likely.
And I'm relying on a mortgage company to close, so it's like, one more week. I'm like, so here we go. So I'm about to drop another $12,000 on nothing. I'm like, oh, can I just end this misery?
Yeah, well, hopefully you have a monster year and you have tax write-offs.
Yeah, no, listen, like I said, you take your lumps. I learned a ton from it, and the stages of grief are over. I'm back, feeling good. No bad days, but you got to go through that, and you can't wallow in the mud like Eeyore forever, right? You got to get back on that horse and say, hey, this is business. Sometimes you get punched, right? Nothing's perfect. Sometimes you lose, and you got to accept that. And I forget who said it, but it's not how many times you get knocked down; it's how many times you get back up.
Exactly.
Right.
Might be Jimmy V. I know the Jimmy V famous.
The Jimmy V fund and the basketball coach.
Yeah.
So it's true, right? So here's a big knockdown, and if I sit around and let that define me, no, you got to get back up, right? So we're getting back up, and this, to your point, hopefully this year's gonna be better. Fed's supposed to cut the rates. We should have a little bit of a breather on the mortgage side. What are you seeing? What are you seeing in your side of the business?
Yeah, I hope so. And one of the things I've learned on partnerships is, we've moved towards working with bigger, more established firms. Some of my more challenging deals were with, sort of one partner or mom and pop type of operators versus doing larger deals where you're working with, almost like a small private equity fund. Right. So that's why we kind of moved up market to buying 100 and 200 unit apartment buildings where you're working with a sophisticated group of people that have proven themselves, and there's a barrier to entry to that as opposed to trying to help somebody out. That's
right. I thought it was going to be an easy deal, right? Like, I mean.
Yeah. So, with that said, there's definitely been some headwinds. The interest rates moving. We were in a number of deals where we're repositioning an apartment building where it made sense to enter with bridge debt, which was a variable rate, because you're going in, you're buying an apartment building, you renovate half the units, maybe 2/3 of the units, and within 2 years you look to sell. And if you go in with long-term debt, there's heavy prepayment penalties, so it becomes difficult to really reposition a building if you're locked in for 5 years and the penalty for selling early is significant.
Right.
So there are some deals that have some challenges just because rates, the SOFR went from almost 0 to 5.5.
Yeah, fast.
Yeah. The good news is the 10-year, which is really what affects the cap rates and is a majority of the longer-term financing. The 10 years dropped back down. It went from 1.5 to it was up to 5. Now it's just about 4.
Yeah, it's cooling off a bit.
Yeah, like right around 4 is probably healthy and solid for long term. That will put cap rates in the 5s. Mm-hmm. And so I really keep an eye on the 10-year. What we're seeing though is the new deals now. If it works now and it pencils now, it's a great deal.
It's only going to get better when rates come down further.
Exactly. So we're just staying in the market. We're active. We're looking for deals that make sense now. From the top of the market, prices may be down 20-25% in some markets like Dallas and Phoenix. From the frothiest top of the market,
Got it. Do you guys target certain geographies, or is it is a geography piece, but it's also obviously the rest of the deal as well?
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly markets we like. We're heavy in the growth markets like the Southeast and the Sun Belt. Yep. But we're also in some deals. We're in a deal in Indianapolis. There's for diversification. It's also nice to be in sort of slow and steady markets that didn't have that huge run up. Exactly. But at the same time, we do like markets where there's population growth, job growth, and I think that's going to continue. Majority of the Southeast and the Sun Belt is just long-term demographics. You got people moving from the Northeast down to the Charlottes, the Georgia, Florida, Georgia. You have California moving to Texas, Nevada, Arizona. Las Vegas is an interesting market, and I was surprised at how little the casino industry really has. I would have thought 80% of the jobs were hospitality.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's below 50%. It might even be below. I think it's somewhere in the 30%.
What else is out
range.
there? Tech? What else is?
Yeah, there's tech, there's logistics,
Okay.
and then just I think there's a lot of companies that have moved out of California, call centers,
Right.
just
All other
all sorts
service
of stuff.
businesses. Yeah, California. Newsom's got he's got his hands full. Whether he's doing good or not, I don't know. I think there's been a lot of people moving out. There's been, I mean, every story I read is like, unfortunately, it's sad stories like homeless towns, and I think I just read an article. The first In-N-Out burger closed, and not because of money, but because like they keep getting robbed or something. Like it's terrible. It's just a shame.
Whole Foods closed in San Francisco. Like
For
I
a
don't
similar
know
reason?
that any other Whole Foods has ever had to close. But yeah, they stopped enforcing the law.
No, it's crazy.
It's wild. It's sort of like New York in the '80s was kind of a scary place a little bit.
Yes,
and then
yeah.
they really cleaned it up. I mean, it started with cleaning the graffiti off of the subway cars, but
Yeah.
you have to enforce. You cannot not enforce shoplifting.
No, it's crazy because then it just becomes and then once like I don't want to say it becomes trendy, but like if a couple people are doing it and they're getting away with it, and they can look at them and go, well, if they're doing it, I can do it. I'll take some free stuff. All of a sudden, people are just going and taking, like, I think I've seen, I don't know if it was a CVS or something. It's crazy. People just running the store, just taking whatever they want, bouncing out. I'm like, this is
There's
nuts.
even organized mobs where like 10 or 20 people at once.
Yes,
they
that's
all
what I'm talking
come in
about.
At the same time. It's crazy.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy. And I lived in New York City for 10 plus years. New York has a special place in my heart. Eventually, I kind of burnt out, but it was really also the lifestyle, the work culture, and the 50% tax rate that burned me out. But I'd love to have a pied-à-terre vacation spot in New York, just part-time apartment.
That would be nice.
I think hopefully kind of it's all cyclical. I'm sure at some point it'll clean up again and people will come to their senses.
Yeah, I think that I really hope that some of the blue states, from New Jersey, New York, these are places I love too. And it bothers me that the regular citizens of the state just sit back and allow it to happen. Because if people just, woke up a little bit, I mean, these are educated populations. This is not like dum-dums. I mean, New Jersey, New York, these are very sophisticated people. And I think that, good people want good things to happen, but at the same time, to allow some of the tax rate just to go so high and just, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, you work so hard, and I would love. I mean, this will never happen, but with the technology we have, I would love to see on one screen all of like where your tax dollars go in like real time. It would be great to see it. It'll never happen, but
yeah, no, it's.
Oh, why is that just going off the map? Where's all that going?
Yeah, I mean, I think I heard this on Rogan, but they were talking about one of the housing authorities with all these employees making $250,000 a year, so all these tax dollars going to support to solve the homeless problem, but
it's all ending up in.
Yeah, it's like every charity. Most charities, like 80% of the money goes to just everyone else's salaries, and only a certain amount actually.
It ends up
down.
with the people it's supposed to help. Right?
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
And that's something. This came up yesterday with some of the blockchain. I went to Crypto Monday, and they talked about with blockchain, it's much easier to get the money.
The
directly
transparency.
You could put money directly into somebody's wallet at some point, and they've done a little bit of that in the U.S. with some of the rebate checks here and there. But it's an experiment of just giving money directly to the people as opposed to kind of
putting it through the intermediary, and then it becomes this gray box. What goes in, what comes out, and the number never matches. And I think the technology and things that are taking place today, it's wild how much. Like I don't know where I saw, but someone was saying like we really are living in the future now. And in the 2000s, you're like, "Where's the flying car?" And we'd all joke, and like it wasn't there yet. But like fast forward 24 years later, and like wow, some huge strides have been made. I mean, the vehicles are becoming hybrid or electrical. You've got AI. I just believe AI is wild. It really is, wild. I hope it stays all for good. I mean, you read some of these stories, you're like, oh my God, that's like Terminator stuff. I don't know what's going to happen. Who knows? But it is very interesting. It's definitely going to impact the economy. There's no doubt about it that a lot of jobs, are going to be replaced with AI because you can have one person who's running the AI that was doing the job of 10 people, let's just say. So you're going to have consolidation. There's going to be a reshuffling of what the sophisticated workforce does. Like, I don't know where it ends up, but we're definitely in the midst of it. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and there's been a ton of technological change over the years. That I think what I've heard on this is it's going to be faster.
Yes.
Some of these changes took years. Kind of going from horse and buggy to cars, but this may be 3 years or 5 years instead of 20 years.
Yep. I just saw. What did I just see? There was so many cool. I mean, I can't even keep up with the number of apps that do cool things that I'm like, oh, I could really use that. Oh, I could really use that. And now it's like redesigning. As a business owner, redesigning how your business operates, leveraging and realizing that you can now incorporate AI into. I mean, think about presentations. I mean, putting together a PowerPoint. Like, there was a marketing team that needed to be hired at one point. You can like punch in code, tell it what to do. I think it spits out the answer. You dump it into PowerPoint or Google Sheets or Google Slides, whatever it's called, and all of a sudden you have a PowerPoint that would have taken one person a couple of days to put together.
Yeah, I want to start that. That's one of our goals for the year, is to take better advantage of that. We have a couple tools even for, I still write a lot of my own content for blog posts. I think, you can tell when it's me, but there's times where, we'll look at something and say, hey, write a top 5 reasons for this, and then I'll edit it from there. And it's saving a lot of time.
It's amazing.
Because for me, it's about getting started, putting pen to paper, like typing in that first
line and getting it going.
Yeah, it's similar to an interview. Once we're riffing, we could talk for hours, but you put me in front of the camera and just be like, all right, talk to the audience, and like, so yeah, it's amazing. It's really look forward to seeing what it does in the
wild.
years.
It's definitely wild, man.
And it's going to affect the elections too. We were getting on the politics thing.
Interesting. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah,
you're right.
And the level of some of the fake news is just might be AI driven, and half of Twitter might be bots. I mean, it's
right. So now they're releasing, swaying the candidate, trying to sway the public one way or another, and that's a whole nother. I just saw that there's going to be something to proving you are really you, some sort of a digital, I don't want to call it a license, but a digital identification thing. Because it's going to be so easy to copy and replicate someone else that you're going to have some kind of how they have the little frog it's grown, it's rainforest free, or I can't think what it's called, to prove that it's organic or something, so that the food is coming from wherever they say it's coming from. It's the same idea. It could be your podcast. They could take your likeness and make it look like you're saying this stuff, and it's not you. So you're going to have some kind of digital identification to verify, that's really that person.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've seen a couple of those AI things. I think they did one where they made Tom Brady a dirty comedian for a couple minutes.
Yes.
And and actually there was a couple jokes that actually got laughs from other comedians that. It's crazy. And Rogan's got thousands of hours of content where they've got almost every word. He said enough words that they can basically put anything. Yeah.
Mesh it together and let the AI clean it up. Sounds like it's literally him saying whatever you want it to say.
So. Yeah, it's wild. Bruce Willis sold the rights to his kind of digital form because he's got that
Alzheimer's.
He's got something.
Yeah.
So they could kind of put him in a movie still. I think there's enough clips that they could, and they did it in Top Gun, the new Top Gun, because Val Kilmer had
his voice
esophagus gone, but they were able to kind of
do the same thing. Yeah, so the technology just keeps ripping through, and so interesting how it's changing everything.
That's all for this episode of Alternative Investor Mastermind. Now that you know the many alternative opportunities out there all up for the taking, you can finally become ultra connected and ultra wealthy. Get more valuable advice from the experts by subscribing to the show at alternativeinvestormastermind.com. Become a winner in the world of passive investing today in alternative investment strategies. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.